This is the Hot Take Hockey Podcast with your hosts, Lucas and John Viveiros.
Hey everyone, it's John here from Hot Take Hockey with the legend Lucas Viveiros, the Hot Take Hockey Podcast, Episode 5. And we got some legendary status coming on this podcast episode. BARDOWN, TSN represent. So look out for a little chat action towards the end of the episode. But Lucas, man, we're getting going with the podcast. We're going to talk some Central Division here, and maybe that will give you guys a clue on who we have appearing on this episode. So Central Division chat, I'm sure it'll be centered a lot around that logo next to me, the defending cup champs.
This one here, Lucas, and this one here, Johnny, come on.
We'll talk about the Blues. No, but just overall, Lucas, are you excited? Season's coming close, but Central Division, I feel like for a while now, we've talked about it being one of the better divisions there with the Metro. Obviously, the Atlantic is coming up now too. I guess overall, how you feeling about the pod and how you feeling about what we're going to talk about the Central Division today?
Yeah. Episode 5. Hyped to be here. Hyped to be here again. We're just under a month away from puck drop to start the season. So looking forward to it. Central Division. I hear a lot of people saying it's the weakest in the league now. Obviously we've seen this shift where the Eastern Conference is now stronger than the West. Like the West was much stronger for a long period of time there, and now we've seen that switch. So in the Central, it's going to be interesting to chat with our guests and with yourself and see who we think are the contenders, the pretenders, and maybe some bottom feeders looking for Connor Bedard here in this division. John, give me a quick hot take or just your quick opinion on one team. You can lead it in any direction you want.
Well, I do want to say I sold the bag a bit, Lucas, because I was just realizing if us going into this episode kind of focusing on the Central Division, I should have thrown some more Central Division jerseys because I do have a bunch of Central Division jerseys. Could have thrown my Tarasenko jersey back there or a few others. So if we're talking to anyone else in terms of fandom, maybe I'll throw some different ones back there, but just some throwbacks and obviously the Cup champs and the Avs. But anyways, yeah, I think my hot take or just initial take to get the conversation started, and maybe it's relevant to this pod as well, is I think a team between the Jets and Stars are going to be tossing around some big core players or big veteran players around trade deadline or next off season. So that would be my hot take. I think the Central Division just up top is just way too stacked. I'm looking at Colorado. I'm looking at St. Louis. I'm looking at Minnesota. I'm looking at Nashville. And I think you could make a solid argument for all 4 of those teams being in the playoffs. That leaves Dallas and Winnipeg. I think Dallas is a really good overall team. If Ottinger's at the top of his game, Dallas should be in there potentially as well. That leaves Winnipeg. I think on paper, Winnipeg should be good enough to make the playoffs. I think if you're looking at the Central Division, the only 2 teams you're probably writing off are Arizona and Chicago, just based on what we know. If Chicago keeps Patty Kane, they might be mediocre. But outside of that, those 2 teams will probably be closer to the bottom. So Winnipeg for me is that take just to say, if they can't figure it out, if Hellbuck can't figure it out to carry them, then we're going to see between I would say, as I said, the Jets and Stars, we're going to see some big blockbuster deals in the next 365 days at some point.
A good take right there. When I look at the West, John, I see it more, I see the Pacific being a little bit stronger as far as depth into the division goes, maybe not the top end of it, but depth wise. And so that's why I can't not think that, potentially 5 teams are going to come out of that Pacific is how I'm looking at it right now. And I know that might be a hot take. That's where I'm coming at right now, which means that only leaves 3 spots. And in my logic in that Central Division, and obviously Colorado is the class of the league, not just the division. And then you have obviously a bit of a drop down to the teams like St. Louis and a Minnesota. And Dallas is going to be in there, like you said, with Ottinger, but I just think Nashville, this is the year where maybe they take a bit of a step back in my mind. I don't see them keeping up as the season goes on with a lot of these other teams that are going to cross over in the wild card race.
So are you saying are you saying the Pacific is more so just competitive? Like, are you actually taking I'm trying to think here. Like, are you taking in kind of a matchup or a comparison? Like, are you taking Vegas and LA over Dallas and Winnipeg? Is that where you're going? Or like you're taking those kind of teams? Is that just more because you feel like the points will be more spread out in the Pacific to get that opportunity in the playoffs? Like, I guess where's your reasoning on that?
Yeah. So the Pacific, obviously, you're within your own division, you're going to play your own division more. And I think that it is more of a competitive division, the Pacific. I see Vancouver taking a few steps forward this year, as we've talked about in the previous pod. Vegas isn't going to be, as strong as they were a couple of years back, but I just can't see them falling from grace like they did last year, halfway through the season, where it just fell from under them. So I think they're going to be in the mix for a playoff spot. I think the West overall is going to be, must see TV as we approach the end of the season. But I like your take on Winnipeg, because I think Winnipeg is due for a bounce back in terms of their point total, and Hellebuck is due for a massive bounce back. I mean, he was one of the best goalies in the league until last year. People stopped rooting for him, but I can see Winnipeg really bringing themselves back into the conversation. So there's tons of directions you can go with it, but right now I would go 5 in the Pacific, 3 in the Central.
Wow, I'm sitting here as curious as I'm sure every listener is right now, just knowing that you're going to have Colorado in there, seeing a Blues hat on and thinking, is he going to have Minnesota out of the playoffs?
This might be my hot take, man. This might be my hot take.
Sorry, I'm not even like, I swear to everyone listening, we did not talk about this, but I was just thinking as Lucas here is talking, I'm just thinking, okay, so this guy's locking in 5 teams for the Pacific. I know he's talked about like Ottinger, the Stars. I don't know if you even have the Stars in, but you're saying like 3 teams in the Central. And knowing you, for sure you're gonna have Colorado and St. Louis in there. And I'm not even saying that's a bad take. I think that's the smart take anyways, to have Colorado in and St. Louis. If Bennington's an above average goalie across the league, then the Blues will be in. So what I'm thinking is Mini. What do you think on Mini?
That's where my hands are tied right now. I mean, Mini, I just think that eventually Father Time's got to catch up to Marc-Andre Fleury. Obviously, we saw in the playoffs, he wasn't the greatest against St. Louis in that first round. And I think with a bounce back season from Hellebuck and Winnipeg, they're really going to push the Wild for potentially that 3rd spot in the Central. And I can't rule out Dallas with Ottinger. For me, right off the hop too, this is another team that I think you have in and I might have out. I have Nashville out, straight out. I have Nashville out. And that leaves me with Minnesota, Dallas, and Winnipeg fighting for that 3rd spot. And if I had to put my chips down right now on who that 3rd team's going to be, I'm taking the best goalie out of all 3 of those. And it ain't Hellebuck. It's Ottinger. I'm taking Dallas in the 3rd spot.
Oh, this guy's buzzing right now. I love it. So is that what, like, is that a confidence that the Blues are just going to smack Dallas round 1 or what?
I don't want to get into the playoff chatter yet, but I think Minnesota, I know a lot of people are very high on Minnesota. But when I watched them throughout the season, I mean, I watched a lot of games against the Blues and against the Avalanche and the more class of the West, and Minnesota never really impressed me too much. When apart from Kaprizov, obviously. To where I think that they're this, Stanley Cup contender that I feel like a lot of people had them as last season. So I think they're going to take a bit of a step back from that 113 points that they had last year.
Yeah. To give context to the people listening and watching. So if anything, like I watch, you guys know, like I watch a stupid amount of NHL games throughout the year. But I'm going to give like in that house, Lucas, in your house, for people listening, you have a big time Blues fan and you have a big time Calgary fan. So last year there was definitely a lot of Blues and Avalanche games in that house for sure. So I can imagine that you guys definitely watch a lot of Central games, you and Nick. But I guess I mean, for me, I think Minnesota is just so exciting. I'm kind of pissed off a little bit because I gave Minnesota the credit. And I feel like people on the Hot Take Hockey channel have given me some crap over not giving Minnesota enough credit over the years. And I gave them a couple of rounds in the playoffs saying they were going to upset the Blues in 7 and that they were going to even go ahead and push Colorado to a 7-game series. Obviously, I did make I think a solid take in saying that whoever came out of that St. Louis, Minnesota series was going to give Colorado a run for their money. And honestly, I think a lot of people would look at that series and probably, I think a lot of people overlooked that series and just saw the excitement of the McDavid versus McKinnon matchup in the conference finals and just forgot about the Blues were really close. I mean,
push Colorado, very
close to a game 7. I mean, It was how many seconds left when freaking Darren Helm scored that goal?
Oh my goodness. It was, I want to say at first glance, I think it was under 20 seconds.
It was
Am
down.
I wrong in that? It was in the final minute for sure.
It was down to the last, like a bit of that third period. So they were that close. So I'm just thinking, again, I think it's going to come down to Colorado and St. Louis. I would say if you had to bet, like two of those three, or those two teams will probably be in the top three is what I'm trying to say. And then after that, you can make any arguments. But I guess for me, there's probably a little bit of bias from my end because I've always been a big Roman Josi guy.
Mm-hmm.
So just seeing what Nashville did and seeing how their big guys stepped up last year, I find more consistency in those big time guys for Nashville. Not to say I love Nashville's roster overall, but I even think there's a few underrated guys there, like a Philip Tomasino, who I've given credit to, that they just brought in Nino Niederreiter. And I think they have a few other guys on that roster. And I think bringing in McDonough solidifies, again, Nashville has one of the better top fours probably in the West.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just thinking, like, if Saros, you just talked about, like, there's a few really good goalies in that Central, like Saros, Oettinger, Hellebuck. So I'm just thinking those three goalies battling for a 3 spot or a wild card spot is pretty crazy. To me, it's so tough because I feel like Dallas brings a better overall roster, probably at least a better overall forward group. And then Winnipeg's just such a wild card for me because it's like, what version of these guys are we getting between like Dubois, Wheeler, Scheifele? Like Wheeler's getting older. Scheifele, you know what? I think the pressure was on for an Olympic spot last year. So I think that's why he started slow. And then Dubois, what a write-off. So I don't even know. I think Dubois could play really well, but still just that whole situation. So for me, when I look at Winnipeg, the only consistency I see in that forward group, at least for guys that I know are going to be great, are Ehlers and Connor. Those are my two guys that I just know will be great on Winnipeg. So when I look at Nashville, like I feel like there's guys on that team as well. There's guys on Dallas, Jason Robertson, Pavelski, Hintz, go down the list. So I'm honestly stuck, man. How I had it though, on my predictions from about a month ago, but I'm going to be changing my predictions because there's been moves that have been made. And I am obviously like looking at lineups and kind of, I'll probably make a final prediction like after the lineups and rosters are set going into the season. But right now, I probably still have it 4-4. So 4 from the Pacific, 4 from the Central. But honestly, man, if I had to lean, I'd probably lean to 5 in the Central, like the opposite.
Wow.
Honestly, because I'm just thinking the Pacific for me, I have a lot less, like goaltending for me is always huge. And I have a lot less like belief in the Pacific goaltending. Like, and it's not even close. I would say everyone just crapped on Markstrom for the playoff performance, but I'm looking at the Pacific Division. Is there really a goalie there that you could say confidently is better than Markstrom? Like Jack Campbell for Edmonton. Let's go through it.
Yeah.
Vegas' situation right now.
I'm saying
LA,
Thatcher Demko, though.
Sorry, Demko. Sorry,
Demko would be the one.
Sorry,
Demko would be the one.
That's the only one. I actually forgot about the Canucks.
That's
but
the only
Demko
one.
is the only one.
Yeah.
So that's my apologies. Demko is the only one. San Jose, no. Anaheim, I guess you could make an argument for John Gibson, but like not recently.
Mm-hmm.
And Seattle, no. So I'm just looking at that Pacific Division. Yeah, Demko 1, Markstrom 2, and then it's wide open. I mean, Campbell might be the third best in that division, maybe. Am I missing a team? Right?
No.
The Cali teams, Seattle, Edmonton,
Seattle as well.
Vancouver.
Yeah. So
yeah, you're right. Demko for sure 1, Markstrom 2. I honestly, I forgot about the Canucks there for a second because I actually do have the Canucks probably in a playoff spot as I see it right now. But again, it's like if I move to the 5 teams in the Central, I would probably knock between LA or I don't even know if I have Vegas in. I think as far as I said, Vegas is probably not in for me. So I could see a scenario where it's just the 3 Canadian teams in the Pacific Division and LA and Vegas maybe battling towards the end for a wild card spot or the 3rd spot. And then the Central teams for me, including Colorado, St. Louis, Minnesota, and then Dallas, Winnipeg, and Nashville fighting for the 2 spots. I think it's going to be like last year. I think the West is going to be battling for like, there's going to be like 5
right
or 6
to the
teams
end,
battling for 2 spots.
right to the bitter end.
I honestly, I hope things change with the East, but I think that's why a lot of people are having the same teams in the East because it's just like outside of like Ottawa making big changes and looking a lot better, and obviously Columbus brought in Johnny Gaudreau. Outside of that, was there a lot of like big time movement to change things in a big way for some of those like East teams? I don't know. I don't think so.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe for the better teams that just got better. I mean, Florida changed. Like Obviously, like Toronto's questionable goaltending, but I don't think I think it'd have to be something crazy for Toronto to miss the playoffs. I know some people are making hot takes saying the Panthers will miss and the Sens will make it. I don't think that's too far fetched, but again, like I feel like people are forgetting how good Barkov is and how good that core is.
Yeah,
still around.
That's ludicrous to me. I think this Ottawa Senators like hype that is going on right now is essentially the opposite of what Vegas is getting. Vegas is getting this with everyone going against them and saying that they're probably going to miss. So I just see that too much of an overcorrection. I see Vegas getting back in, but as far
Vegas's defense is, everyone forgets how good Vegas's defense can be.
Yeah. Pietrangelo, Theodore, Whitecloud, Martinez. Like this is a deep team. So that's why I have the 5 slanted in the Pacific right now, because I was talking about Vancouver on a couple pods ago, and I was really, really high on Vancouver as well. So right now I have the 3 Canadian teams in the Pacific, Vegas and LA. I can't take LA out. They also added Fiala, which I think is going to be a nice little pickup for them. Yeah. And so that's why I got the 5-3 as far as 5 in Pacific, 3 in the Central right now.
You're crazy, man. Wait, so who did you have missing in the Pacific out of the teams that I talked about? Did you have the Flames in?
I have Flames, Oilers, Canucks, Vegas, and LA. That's my 5. That's my 5. Yeah. And then in the Central,
I mean, I wasn't even thinking about that. I was like,
as of right now, as of September, middle of September, right now, those are the 5 I have in Pacific. And if I was to pick Central, I'd go Colorado, St. Louis, and that third one, I feel like I'm going to be juggling to start the year. But right now, I'd say Dallas. Right now, I'll say Dallas, just because I'm really high on Ottinger this year.
Yeah, what he did in the playoffs is crazy. Yeah, man. I mean, for everyone listening, guys, drop your comments. Reach out to us on social media.
Tell me I'm crazy for having Minnesota out of there. Leave them in the comments.
Yeah, I think Minnie's so tough to evaluate every year too. I think some people are saying Minnie will take a step back this year. I don't know if I'm that quick to say that, but yeah, for me, the one team that's really pissing me off, because I want to make my opinion, just say the Jets are making the playoffs, but watching them last year, it really pissed me off. Watching Scheifele last year really pissed me off. And honestly, on paper, Winnipeg's defense is a bit weak, but with Hellebuck there and their forward group, they should be right there for playoffs, or at least battling towards the end. So, and Rick Bowness coming in, I think he'll get some more out of them. I'm hoping, he knows the Central Division well. Yeah, exactly. So it's tough. I think, as I said, between Dallas and Winnipeg, we're going to get into a conversation with a legend from BARDOWN here in a second. But yeah, I mean, I think that's where it kind of crosses up, and we'll talk about this Central Division and the Avalanche with this person. So I think it's interesting. I think the Avalanche and Blues are probably, if someone's having one of those two teams knocked out, St. Louis is the interesting one in terms of, I think Binner, if he, as I said, I think if he plays well, like in comparison to these other good goalies in the Central Division. But I think when we bring on our guests, we're gonna have to talk about this Colorado tandem, because I think every team in the Central Division, outside of, again, I'm not trying to write off Arizona and Chicago in this conversation, but I'm saying every goalie that's in good playoff contention has a clear number one, and there's no debate about it. Like Nashville, Saros, Minnesota, Fleury, St. Louis, Binnington, Dallas, Ottinger, Winnipeg, Hellebuck. You know what I mean? Like there's solid number one guys. And again, you can make an argument, well, Fleury split some starts with Gustafsson, whoever. Yeah, exactly. But Colorado is just the class of that division, and that's why they can play with a bit of a weakness at goal in comparison to their rivals here. But will it be a weakness? That's the big thing. Will Grubauer was there. Will Georgiev take a big step and be that guy, or will Francouz has to take a lot of starts? It's going to be interesting. But just before we bring on our guest, do you have any takes that we should say now that we can carry right in to fire up our guest? Do we have any Avalanche takes fresh off the Evan Rodriguez signing? I'm thinking Georgiev is the guy. He's going to have a big year this year. I've always been high on Georgiev since the Leafs were departing with Freddie Anderson. I was very interested in if they would go after a goalie like Georgiev.
So my hot take as far as Georgiev goes is he's gonna put up 30 wins this season.
Wow. There you go.
3-0.
So, but you still think Francis will get his fair share?
I think Francis will get, a 1B level of starts, but I think Georgiev is going to be the de facto starter, especially when playoffs come around. I think he will be that guy for them.
I mean, based on that, if Georgiev gets 30 wins,
Francis.
We'll say he has, I don't know, close to 10 to 15 losses, plays a good 45 games.
Yep.
Maybe close to 50 games and gets a little bit over 30 wins. And then Francis plays the remaining 30 to 32. I think that's a realistic possibility. So, honestly, I'm down to keep going with the chat on the Central and talk NHL, talk hockey, get some sport media chat in there, just some experience. So we're going to bring on Luca from BARDOWN, an absolute legend. We'll talk about the Avalanche, the Cup. We'll talk about the Central Division, as I said, the upcoming season, what BARDOWN has coming. Just pick his brain a little bit for ourselves and up and coming podcast. So let's bring on Luca, the legend from BARDOWN.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Hot Take Hockey Podcast. I'd like to welcome another guest we're excited to have on the show here today. He's a content creator and media personality that you'll surely recognize from BARDOWN and TSN here in Canada. Let's give a warm welcome to Luca Celebre. How's it going, Luca? And where are you on this gloomy Monday in the GTA?
Oh, thanks, guys. So thanks for the intro. I am I'm in my apartment, East End, Woodbine and Gerrard area, around that. Yeah,
I know that.
I shouldn't have said the specifics, but East End beaches, beaches area.
Nice. Well, first off, I wanted to give a big congratulations. Your Avs pulled it off. They brought the cup home.
They did. Thank you.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. What was just off the top of your head, what was a big moment on their way to the cup that really sticks out to you still?
Yeah, there were a ton. I was kind of watching. I do it every now and then where you just you go down a YouTube wormhole of watching all the big goals and things like that. And so, there were. The Darren Helm one was great just to kind of put them over the hump and that was just a huge goal. Yeah, against those guys there. And it was one of those things where it's just you're so nervous. We're out shooting them. I think the shots were almost 40-20. And you're if we go to overtime, though, one bad bounce, you're looking at a game 7, all the pressure's on you again. And it's these memories of these second round exits and all that comes flooding back as a fan. And I'm imagine if you're a player, that's all you're thinking about is just, we've lost 3 times in a row. So that goal was pretty huge. There was another one that stuck out to me. Oh gosh, I'm forgetting it now. Oh, and I'm upset at myself that I'm kind of forgetting.
Well, we'll have to talk about the Kadri goal in the final for sure.
That one was nuts.
Yeah.
There was also, was it Edmonton? The Comfer goal was pretty big, I think, as far as I think that was game 3 in Edmonton, and ugly goal for Mike Smith to give up, but one of those games where it's just you're a road team, you're up 2-0, the Oilers playing at home, playing in a Western Conference final for the first time in so many years, almost 20 years. And they just hit the post on a power play and Comfer goes down, great effort and scores. And now you're up 3-0 in a series as opposed to being up 2-1. And it would have been fine to be up 2-1, but now you're 3-0, you're 1 win away. So that's another one that's kind of sticking out in my mind.
Yeah, and I honestly have been talking about it a lot, just in terms of Colorado's, some of the guys they brought in. I think the biggest thing we always talk about, and we're all in the Toronto area, so we see stars in Toronto here, but it was more so the guys that got brought in. I think people were for a bit there, maybe not criticizing Sakic to a full extent, but we're obviously questioning a lot of the moves and a lot of just the structure of the team for a while. And then I look at some of these big games, JT Compher scoring a couple goals, and Darren Helm, these are game 6s and game 7s. Josh Manson scoring a big goal, Arturi Lehkonen scoring a big goal, guys that were just brought in towards the end or brought in free agency. And obviously we know the big names in Colorado. So I guess for you, Luca, was that kind of more exciting in a weird way? Just seeing some of these character guys, even Cogliano, the stories of him just going for some crazy speeches at intermission.
Yeah, it was awesome. Cogliano is kind of a family friend. Like he played hockey with a couple of my cousins growing up. So I got to go see him in the cup when they were here, and like that was really cool. But him specifically, like I love those role player kind of things. But it's also one of those things where like Sakic just identified what role players are going to do well, because like some role players on some teams might not do well on another. Like Cogliano is a great example of a guy that he plays the way the Avs like to play, which is he's a fast guy. His skating is the thing that's his strength, and that's been able to keep him in the league for so long. Mm-hmm. And they needed to upgrade their penalty kill too, which is something that he does great at. He's just a hardworking guy. And I think if you look up and down the Avs lineup, like Lekkonen's another guy that they at the time, like my first reaction was like, damn, Justin Barron, I think is going to be a pretty good defensive prospect. Yeah. And he'll probably turn out to be a pretty good defenseman, a top 4 guy, you assume. But Lekkonen was just everything that the Avs have. Like he was a Val Nichushkin, just a light version of that, like not as heavy, but he had so many big moments and big goals and just gelled immediately because he can kind of do everything. And so I think that's kind of an underrated aspect of like finding those role players, is finding ones that actually fit with like the system that you're playing, and not just like, oh, okay, like Darren Helm might not be valuable to another team because they want to play heavier on the 3rd and 4th lines. Whereas Colorado's just like waves of speed at you. Every single line is going to do that. And so, it is cool to see those guys though. Like all of them contributed in the playoffs. Everyone they acquired, everyone they brought in, like everyone had moments and had big goals and had points and had production. And so, you got to tip your hat to Joe Sakic on that.
Yeah, for sure. Like the way they played, just the way they come at you in waves every shift, it would just never let up. And it was such a great team to watch with that run. But Arturi Lekkonen is a guy that I am hugely I'm big time on him this year for having a breakout year. I know I looked up his stats and I was so shocked to see that he had like 1 or 2 30-point seasons. He's never really gotten above like 35 points. But I think this year he's going to really find himself in that top 6 for the most part. And that's going to be exciting to see. How about, I wanted to throw this one at you, Evan Rodriguez just signing. How do you think about that fit?
I know. I think the biggest worry as amongst Avs fans all summer long has been like, what are you going to do at 2C? Like who's going to play center? And like with Kadri gone, and I think we all assumed once they signed Josh Manson too, like once that domino started to fall, well, not only that one where it's like you brought back Nichushkin, you brought back Lekkonen, you brought back Manson. It's like, there's no way that you're going to be able to afford Kadri. And if they did, like, sure, why not? But I understand why they didn't try and break the bank for Kadri because of just, I love him. He's an Avs legend. Like would have loved to have him back, but I also understand the point of like, you're trying to not only win 1 year, but you're trying to sustain that success. Mm-hmm. And so these are kind of the shrewd moves you make. And I'm surprised that it took this long to kind of make that move, but it's a great gamble on a guy that like he played really well in Pittsburgh. He's looking to prove himself. Why not go to Colorado? You're going to be playing with 2 amazing players. If you're centering that second line anywhere in the top 9, you're going to be playing a lot. Like you're going to be playing with great players. And I think they want Newhook to be the 2C, but at least this doesn't put as much pressure on him to be that guy right away. And Rodriguez could play wing as well. He's played both. Like injuries happen throughout the season. So he's just another piece that you can move up and down the lineup. And I really like it. I think he's a good player. Like I don't expect the Kadri type production. And like, that's going to be a kind of a team effort to replace those goals and things like that. But every time I think of that, I'm just like, well, Nathan McKinnon is so young. Mikko Rantanen is so young. We already think they're good players. Like they could take another step for all we know and just really become even better. And like, that's a scary thought that I don't think a lot of people think about, where it's just like, oh no, they're amazing. Like they're kind of peak, but I'm just like, McKinnon could take another step forward. Like he could just insert himself into like the number 1 spot in the NHL of best players. And I wouldn't be surprised. So yeah, I don't know. It's I like Rodriguez is my long-winded way of saying that. It's a good signing.
So yeah, related to Kadri, but honestly related to like all the Avs players, or even this can be, I guess you could kind of talk about your experience with BARDOWN and your industry. Have you met a lot of the guys? I know you talked about you have a kind of a connection with Cogliano, but have you met some Avs guys and like kind of has that even add to more of the experience and seeing them win?
Yeah, definitely. I've met a couple of the guys. I've met Makar and Kadri at All-Star Weekend when I was with Jesse. And that was a lot of fun. They're both great. Honestly, any Avs player, like Tyson Jost, met him just over social media, but he was great when he was with the Avs, and still a guy that like I follow, and he's awesome. And anyone I've met, like the entire organization from top to bottom, like loved working with them. I got to work with them during the playoffs, which was a lot of fun. And so their organization from top to bottom, like there are so many amazing people within it, and just lucky enough to work with them. But you can see like the culture that Sakic has built from the top down, like just walking through, like seeing him kind of walk through and behind the scenes, and he knows everyone's name. Like it doesn't matter if you're like a trainer or like the social media people, like he knows everyone's name and is talking to everyone. And I think that culture he's created goes with what the players do as well. Like they have kind of bought into that culture and they embody that culture too. So they're just a great group of people to be around. And then anytime I've talked to any Avs player, like they're awesome. They're so great.
Yeah. And another question, just to build on that experience of meeting the Avs players and stuff like that. I know you exude just the passion in sports, even, you know, apart from the Avalanche. We see it in the quizzes, we see it in BARDOWN. And I've even seen it, like, you know, we were talking about before we hopped on with the Broncos. And I know you've also followed a bit of soccer overseas. Did you always know that you wanted to pursue a career in sports? Like, or when did that light bulb kind of go off as a kid?
Kind of. It's weird. Like I think it was more high school where it was just like the only thing I've kind of ever been passionate about is sports. And so in high school you take all these classes and it's just like, none of this is really making me happy, or I can see myself in a future in this. And the one class I did like was writing. So it was English, or it was writer's craft and things like that. And I had such great teachers that pushed me in those areas, and I owe a lot of where I am to them. But it was kind of like grade 12. It was just like, I love sports, I love writing, maybe journalism is kind of where I want to go. And I was lucky enough to find the College of Sports Media. I went back for like my victory lap, and I played football in high school and wanted to like, was at the time Carleton was coming back, like their football program was coming back. And I was just like, maybe I'll like walk on at Carleton and go there for journalism. Like I thought I could. I was so naive to thinking I could do that. But either way, like going back for the victory lap helped me find the College of Sports Media because I looked into it a little more. I had that time. And from there, it was kind of history. But yeah, I've always been passionate about sports. And so it just worked out that there was this place that I could go and pursue that passion.
Did you know anyone going into the BARDOWN team? Like, was there any, or did you guys all just kind
No.
of meet as it went along?
No, it's crazy because it started off so small. Like when I interned there were only 3 people working full time, and only 2 of them are still working with us. DZ was one of them, and there's Danny Wright, who works as like the Jay and Dan social media guy. Like he runs all those accounts, makes content with Jay. And then from there, like at my time, Jesse had interned before me, but he was still kind of interning. And then Corwin came in after, and slowly but surely we kind of just built up our group. But at the beginning, there were only 4 of us. And so no one really knew anybody. There's one person I knew that interned around the same time I did, or just before I did, Christian. He's been in a couple of quizzes, and he works with TSN as well now. So he's the only person I've actually like known going into it. And I only knew him through going to school. So yeah, it was kind of just meeting everyone for the first time. And it's a great group of people to work with. I love every one of them.
I was going to say it does seem like a great team, but yeah, you go ahead, Lucas, because yeah, obviously it seems like you guys have obviously brought a lot of the chemistry. So I that's why I was kind of asking. I was like, did you guys know each other going in? Like, it's kind of been a built thing.
No, it's built up, which is crazy. Like we all did not know each other. We didn't have any prior relationship, but you just work. Like the things you work on, whether it be like working long nights when we worked long nights before, or like different events and things like that, you really start to learn about each other. And then it helps when you also play sports together. So like having our hockey team that we play together on, it's not even just about like the making content part of it. It's just like Sunday nights, like we all know we're going to see each other, which is really fun. And we get to play hockey with each other and have some fun and go for drinks after and things like that. And so We do a lot of stuff like that outside of work, which is great. And it's just, yeah, it's an awesome group of people.
Yeah, the team building aspect of it really helps with like the chemistry on air and all that. So you really see it shine through in your guys' content. Like I really do see it.
Thank you.
I wanted to change course a little bit because I wanted to get your take on, moving into the season. We're just under a month away. The Central Division, how it's looking, how you see it stacking up. John and I were chatting about it before we hopped on with you here. And I'm going to give you the floor first, but then we can jump in as well and offer what we think. But so how do you see it shaking out from let's go top to bottom?
Top to bottom. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me actually pull up, because I'm just like, who is in the Central Division again? Let me pull up the NHL standings. I mean, I'll start at the top. I don't think Colorado is going to, like, even if they have a kind of Stanley Cup hangover, I don't think they're going to lose this division. I think they're the best team in it. I think even with the Kadri loss and the question mark in net, I think enough has changed for them to kind of feel the shakeup, and it's not just the same team and you're not just running it back, and there are legitimate question marks still. And I also think that like having Sakic there is a great leader to be like it's hard enough to win one. And I think your focus after winning one sometimes can be like, we won one, like great. And then the next year can be a little dicey. But I think with him just having won 2 cups as a player, he knows how hard it is to get back there and how rewarding it is as well to just be part of something so special. And not a lot of back-to-back champions, and write your name in the history books and be like the Tampa Bay Lightning in the West. So I think they're going to be just as driven, just as motivated. It's hard not to when you have like such great players and such great leaders. So I'll put them at the top.
Do you see, sorry, I just want to jump in. Do you see a big difference in, the goaltending production they're going to get with Georgiev now as the 1A, we'll call him, and Francouz is the backup, or as the 1B?
No, I really don't know what to expect. Like I'm happy they didn't sign Kemper and give him the contract, because it was a big contract. And I think Georgiev just needs some games in front of a good team. Like, not saying the Rangers aren't a good team, but they're definitely a team that relies more on their goaltending and gives up a lot of shots and grade A opportunities than some teams. And I think the Avs have one of the, if not the best defensive structure and team in hockey. And they proved that in the Stanley Cup final too. Like that third period of Game 6 was just a masterclass where Kemper just needed to make the one cross ice save on Kucherov. That was their only chance. Like they didn't allow any shots. They're a suffocating defensive team. And so I think that's going to play well to a guy like Georgiev. And I think he's just super talented. Maybe it hasn't been unlocked yet. And I think if it is unlocked and he's the guy that a lot of people think he can be, it might be better than Kemper, but there's also the chance that it might not be. And so having Francouz is still nice as well. So yeah, the question marks in that are legitimate. Like until we see it, I'm not so sure. And also Kemper had like a really kind of not great start to the season last year. And he played his way into being comfortable. And I think there's something to be said about like, some goalies like a lot of shots and don't know how to adjust when you're not getting a lot of pucks on net, or it's not some great chances and you have to adjust. And I've never been a goalie, but I imagine that's probably something you have to adjust to. So yeah, the question marks in net are real. I think St. Louis is the second best team, if I'm being honest, as much as I don't like the Blues. I think they are the second best team, just because I think the Wild are going to struggle a little without that Fiala scoring production. I think it was a huge loss for them. And I'm just interested to see them do that again. What they did last year was really good, but I want to see them do it again. I think I'll have them number 3 in the division. I don't think they're as bad as like I don't think they'll just fall off a cliff. I think they'll still be really good. They're a good defensive team. They've got a lot of good players. So I'll put them 3rd. I think I'll go Dallas 4. I love what I saw out of them in the playoffs. And I just think that they're like a really deep team, and they've got these young guys that are just playing great. And Joe Pavelski is still ageless, and Heiskanen is like the best defenseman that no one talks about. Like,
yeah, for sure.
He's like, as far as I'm concerned, he's up there with Fox and Makar as like the conversation.
Yeah, I would for sure go ahead and say, like, I don't think anyone's crazy for saying Heiskanen's a top 5 defenseman if they wanted to say that.
No, I would take him 3rd for sure. Like, and it wouldn't be crazy if he's just your flavor. Like, if you like him better than Fox or Makar, like, hey, you might be a little crazy, but it's not that crazy. He's really good. So I agree with that. I'll go Winnipeg after. I think they're gonna probably have a bounce back year. I find it hard to think they're not gonna have a better year than they did last year with how good Hellebuck is and like him having an off year, but they've got a different voice in the locker room now. They've still got all the talent up front, and I think they'll be better. It's so tough because Dubois signed a 1-year deal. Like this is their window kind of closing. Like there are all these trade rumors and things like that. Wheeler's not getting any younger. Like if they're not doing good, then they're just going to sell it all, and they could be near the bottom of the division. I guess Nashville is in the 6th spot, which I feel like I doubted Nashville all year, and like the Avs swept them, but I think the Avs would have just swept anyone they played in that position. So they've got good players. I just find it hard to think like Duchesne is going to have the same production, and Johansson and Forsberg. Like Yossi's incredible. I think Saros is incredible too, but I just don't see them winning 45 games again. And then I guess Chicago and Arizona are the last two. Pick whatever order you want. Yeah, like they're both trying to lose. Bedard. Yeah. Exactly. They're both trying to lose. So whichever one does it better is going to be in last. Chicago's doing a pretty good job of it, especially if they sell Kane. But they've convinced me that they are absolutely not trying to win any games this year.
Yeah, I do feel like the Central's like it's not even solidified, but it's like I feel like you have your 3 tiers. I feel like most people are kind of saying like, well, maybe 4 tiers. Colorado's above St. Louis, but like Colorado, St. Louis right there, and then like kind of the jumble in the middle, like Minnesota, Nashville, Dallas, Winnipeg, and then the bottom tier,
Chicago, Arizona. Yeah, 100%. I totally agree. It's one of those divisions where I'm like, I look at the other divisions in hockey and I'm just like, wow, there's a chance for some teams to kind of come out of nowhere, be exciting, and like in the Metro, I could see like 5 or 6 teams winning it. Like in the Atlantic, you can see 5 or 6 teams winning it. In the Central, I like 3 teams maybe, and that's stretching. And then the Pacific, like who the heck knows what's going to happen with those teams? And you could see a bunch of teams winning that one. So I think like there's less parity in the Central, I think, which is not normally the case. I feel like the Central is always viewed as like the best division, or it was, I guess, when Chicago was kind of in their prime.
Mm-hmm.
And just, as we're talking about this season coming up, obviously for yourself as a fan, but also with Bar Down, do you have, whether it's personal projects or stuff with Bar Down or anything, do you got anything coming that maybe you want to share or give a little promo for the people watching or listening?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to get back to doing more consistent quizzes in our beer league videos. So those are hopefully every week. We're going to have some form of content for everyone. It's been a big focus of ours this summer to get back to the stuff we enjoy doing, quite frankly, the most, and the things that do well for us and what we're kind of known for. But media days are coming up with teams. So we're in the process of talking with teams about what we can do. And the Leafs, we do a video with the Leafs every year, so there'll be one. There's a fruit fly in front of my screen. And then we're talking with other teams. We did a hockey road trip to Peterborough last year, so I imagine we're gonna probably hit up some more junior teams for road trips, and maybe some other NHL teams. There's a lot of exciting stuff that we want to do. I think it's just about doing it now, and I don't want to say anything if we don't do it. So well, you'll see it if it does happen. If it doesn't, then you'll never know.
Fair enough. And just on where are you most active on socials, like for people to follow you?
Oh,
if they haven't yet for some reason, I don't know why they're not.
No, it's Instagram, Twitter. I don't even know my handle. I think it's just Luca Celebre 21 for both of them.
Huge.
Yeah, those are my socials. But yeah, I'm excited about everything. Football's back, hockey's coming back. We got World Cup. Like if you're a sports fan, like this October, November, like November specifically, it's just like, or October, I guess too, because baseball playoffs and things like that. Like this is the best time of the year to be a sports fan, like right in these next 2 months.
For sure.
I had a quick question regarding.
Yeah, I got time. Like if you guys have a couple other questions, I got time.
No, so I got my fantasy draft coming up in hockey, and I'm in the 4 spot. So we all know McDavid is going to go first. Probably Draisaitl, probably Matthews. I think that's a safe assumption as to what's going to happen in my league based upon, there's Leaf fans. So Matthews will be gone.
I like that.
I'm going to be at the 4 spot. And so I am leaning one of 2 ways, and they both play for the Avalanche. Do I go Makar or do I go McKinnon?
You go McKinnon.
And so I have gone back and forth so many times. I'm slowly leaning Makar right now. What
I don't blame you.
What says you?
I don't blame you. I just feel like one of these years McKinnon is going to explode for 100 or more points. The fact that it hasn't happened, and like some of it's been injury. One year he was one short, like he's been 3 short one year. I'm just looking at it now, like 69 games, 93. Like he was on pace in the COVID shortened season. Like he had 65 and 48. Like last year again, 88 and 65. Like he's on pace if he stays healthy. So like I love Makar. Like I mean he's my favorite player by far in hockey, and like 86 points last year as a defenseman is nuts. So if you think you can get like another star forward after, then yeah, like you're not going to get more production from a defenseman than Cale Makar by anyone else. So like
that's where I see the big difference from Makar to second. I mean, Yossi's going to be probably in the mix.
Yossi, and I didn't realize Hedman had 85 points last year. Like that's just a quiet 85 point season for Victor Hedman. And then Yossi had 96 too, which is nuts. So Makar, oh God, I don't know.
As far as Makar goes, like we haven't seen a defenseman hit 100 points since 91, 92, which was Brian Leach. And I think this year, I'm going off on the hot take right now. I think Makar is going to hit the 100.
Oh, I love that.
That's where I'm leaning.
Well, man, that's what I'm saying. Like if you're as high as 2, like after McDavid, I wouldn't blame you if you took Makar at the 2 spot in fantasy, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like
just because he provides you that value as a defenseman.
It's the value as a defenseman. Obviously, Draisaitl and Matthews, like the goals, the points, like of course, that's the easy pick. But if you really want to, like, I've won a couple fantasy leagues where my defense was stacked, and that's what won me the league.
Yeah,
just putting it out there.
I'm just looking at it now, like the amount of guys that averaged like a point per game last year. And
it was crazy.
Just like I'm 50 guys. Oh no, there's a couple like one, but yeah, no, like the amount of 80 point players you had last year is just like, oh my goodness, like take your pick. Like if you want like Jake Gensel, 84 points, 40 goals, it's just like, yeah, like insane. He can do that. Like they're so, and I guess the way hockey is played now, it's just like everyone is so fast and so skilled, and like goals are just, they come more often than they don't now. It's not like back in the day where it was just like one guy. It was like, wait, not one guy, but like, I don't know. It seems like the most amount of like high talent players I've seen in my lifetime of watching hockey. Like there's so many guys that can just score 40 goals and that put up 80 plus points. Like I remember that year where like Jamie Benn led the league with like 84 something points. Yeah. And it's like he won the Art Ross. And like last year he would have been like, that would have been the 27th highest score in points. Like that's how nuts it is right now. And then behind him, you have all these guys like Jason Robertson and DeBrincat and Robert Thomas and Pasternak and Buchnevich. Like all these guys are just scoring 70 plus, and it's not even phasing anybody.
Yeah. No, it is pretty wild.
It's a tough choice.
Yeah, there was a few years there, as you said. Like it's definitely inflated big time over the last few years. Again, just in terms of production, in terms of points. So pretty crazy on that end. Honestly, I'm kind of excited to talk more about like fantasy and stuff. Are you a pretty big fantasy guy?
Honestly, fantasy football is where I'm at in the fantasy world. Like hockey, we do one for work every year. But it kind of just gets boring after. I don't know. Football is just like, it's so hard to replicate football where it's just like once a week, like set your lineups, you do your waivers. Like I know you can do it every day for hockey, but I just lose interest. I think it's the amount of games that there are. Games. Like, football, every game feels like everything is just so meaningful. Like hockey, there's, I don't know. I love football though. I'm getting more into fantasy hockey. I've done basketball. I've done soccer once. I've done baseball a few times, like in high school. So like I've dabbled everywhere else, but football has been like the consistent one. What about you guys? Football, hockey?
Yeah, probably the same.
Yeah, I'm more so hockey. I know John's into football as well. I need to one of these years just dive right in and do football, but I feel like my knowledge isn't well versed in it yet. Around the league. So it's going to take a year of learning, but I need to do it.
There's so many fantasy football podcasts that like, there are so many. I listen to so many of them, and like, they're all so knowledgeable. Like, there's so many different aspects to it and ways people go about looking at it. So like there are definitely, like, if you are going to just start it, like you'll be in good hands.
Honestly, fantasy is what got me more into the NFL and like knowledge. Like when I started in the sport media program, like I was never the biggest NFL guy. I was always a casual Hawks fan, but like getting into fantasy with like other people in sport media and just, I don't know, shooting the shit in that way.
Yeah,
like,
it's fun.
hey, this year I have Russ, so the Broncos better have a year.
I hope so. They better have a year or they're going to be in trouble.
Okay, well, because you're on a podcast with two fellow Portuguese people, right. I need to quickly ask, as you talked about the World Cup very briefly, where are World Cup favorites? Let's hear who you're looking at for the World Cup.
I can't believe it. Italy is an embarrassment. The fact that they won the Euro and didn't even qualify for the World Cup. Like, what an embarrassing team. Like, it just an embarrassment. It just makes me sick. I don't know. France, like, it's tough. I'm not the biggest soccer guy. I'm getting more into it and I love it. Like, it's hard to, I know teams don't repeat. Like, it's so hard to repeat. But I guess like France is the favorite.
Yeah.
They have so many good players, like Benzema and Mbappe and Conte and like just everyone,
I do know that everyone's getting pretty amped on the possibility of a Messi Ronaldo final.
Yeah. That would be nuts. That would be nuts. I would love to see Messi in another World Cup final. That would be incredible.
We want to see Ronaldo win it though.
Yeah.
There you go. I feel like Brazil is just underperformed at this tournament like every year too. So like I feel like they might be in it this year too. I don't know. I don't know. World Cup is wild. It's so much fun. I love it.
Yeah, I'm excited.
It'll be fun. And then you got Canada. The fact that we get to watch Canada in a World Cup is just crazy. And I mean, unfortunately, they face some pretty good teams like Croatia and Belgium. Like, welcome to the World Cup. But that'll be fun.
Yeah, but Canada will have the whole country behind them and all the Italian immigrants as well. Just for Canada.
Exactly, because we got no one else to cheer for. Like, oh my God, they got two nations behind them now.
All right.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, Luca, thank you honestly so much for coming on. We really appreciate taking the time, especially as we record on a Monday night before the Broncos play the first of the season. We honestly, we're really thankful for the time, man. I
appreciate you guys being so accommodating with me. I thought like for Monday night there, it says 8:15 kickoff. I doubt it's going to be an 8:15 kickoff because it never is, but I was just like, just in case, let me see if we can go a little early. I appreciate you guys having me on and accommodating my Broncos game as well.
No worries. Thank you so much again, Luca.
Oh, anytime. Thanks, guys.
All right, take care.
You too.
Surprise guest. We got Jesse Pollock from BARDOWN. Luca and Jesse on the same pod. Here's the interview with Jesse.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Hot Take Hockey podcast. We got an absolute legend on, Jesse Pollock from BARDOWN. He's been on the channel a few times now, so I got to keep hyping this guy up because what a guy to come on the channel some more. Jesse, man, thank you so much for taking the time. How you been? What's going on? And are you excited for some puck?
You're darn right I'm pumped for some puck, and it's a pleasure coming on the podcast. Always nice chatting puck with you, and it's a crazy season's upon us, and I'm pretty hopeful about my squad. So
there you go,
Teddies.
I love it. And not to bring up negative stuff, but hopefully like more of a positive outcome after this pod. Because I don't know if you remember, last time we recorded shortly after the Jets went up against the Habs and it didn't work out too well. And your reaction like all over Twitter was just, I remember it was just going nuts. And I was like, man, I even more so like the fact that like you had come on the channel, I was like, man, I wanted the Jets to pull out some dubs, and I remember us talking about it. I think both of us had them. I don't know if you had them going to the third round. I think I had them going to the third round as well. If you did, but
I had them going all the way, obviously.
Oh, actually, yeah, that's right. But yeah, man, new year. Obviously, there's been a lot of stuff around the Jets, so I do want to get into that. And we talked to Luca, so we're obviously going to talk about some Central Division stuff. So just right off the bat. You're repping. How are you feeling about your Jets squad? Obviously, and I think it kind of ties into like even for yourself and what you do like professionally and career wise. Like there are a lot of players in this team that you interact with as well. So how does it feel to see like all this stuff around trade rumors, all this stuff around this stuff, and like obviously, I mean, you don't have to get too much into it, but just even like you interacting with Dubois and seeing everything that's happened, like how has that kind of been? Because you're a Jets fan first, obviously, but you're also a personality. You've worked with a lot of these people. So how has that kind of been with everything around Winnipeg?
You know what, man? Like at the end of the day, these are people just trying to get the best lifestyle that they see for themselves.
Yeah.
For themselves, and I can't really ever judge anyone for wanting to, try to get to where they want to be professionally, whether it's in Winnipeg or whether it's not. I understand why some players might not want to live in Winnipeg. And I think more importantly, I understand why some players want to play in certain cities. I understand why a guy like Coyote would want to play in his home province of Quebec. I think that'd be really cool. For example, a guy like Coyote, I keep in touch with him sometimes, and I've got nothing but good things to say about him. And what he does with his business, that's his business. But my job my job that I see with the team and with TSN is I just want to represent this organization well. I want people to see the fun sides of this organization, and drama will happen. People are saying stuff about the dressing room, this, that. I don't really focus on that. I just want to make fun stuff with the players. I want to change this thing about hockey where people think it's not fun. I want to change the narrative a bit, and particularly with the Jets, because that's my hometown. Obviously didn't have a team growing up, so when we got the Jets in 2011, instantly latched onto a nice place in my heart. And if guys want to get traded away, I don't really care about it. In the meantime, I just want to have a good time with them and show people that the Jets are a fun organization and that Winnipeg is a fun place to play.
Man, and honestly, drama aside, I think when you look at this team, and I think that's why it was so underwhelming last year. When you look at the team itself, there's a lot of good players on this team. I don't think anyone could look at this squad and write many players off on this team. I think when you look at the top, I think guys like Ehlers and Connor are constantly overlooked. I think when Dubois, obviously there's been a lot of drama and there's been a lot of talk, but when Dubois is on his game, when he's at the top of his game, he is a top end player. And Scheifele and Wheeler, obviously Wheeler more specifically, is getting older, but it's still a solid core in the top six. So I think a lot of the conversation is like, are the Jets on the bubble? Can the Jets snag a division spot? For yourself, are you a little bit more motivated this year, or do you like the fact that there's a lot of people writing the Jets off, and like guys like Hellebuck, guys like Scheifele can maybe bounce back right at the start of the season? Because I mean, I'll even throw out there, I know there was all the stuff around Scheifele, just the Olympic pressure and all that stuff. So are you feeling a little bit of a different confidence and like that underdog effect?
Yeah, I think it really starts with the new coach. I think Rick Bowness, people can have their opinions on him. I've seen a lot of people say this guy plays boring, dump and chase hockey, defensive hockey. But what I really like about him is that a lot of young players have really thrived under him. I mean, if you look at Jason Robertson over in Dallas, he's been absolutely lighting up. I don't know how much you can actually attribute that to Bowness, but it's nice to see at least.
Yeah.
Jets have a lot of young players that kind of need to start taking the leap, and I just don't think Paul Maurice was willing to let these young guys play as much, and that was very frustrating, to be honest with you. I think Bowness is going to step in. He's going to let younger guys play, and he's going to hold his players accountable. I think, like, Paul Maurice, I respect in some ways how much he had his players back. Like, he was never willing to, it just didn't really seem like he held his players overly accountable. He just kind of let a lot of stuff go and always had the players' backs, and kind of seemed like, I could be wrong, but it seemed like guys just some veteran players kind of had a lot of say in things that happened. Like, man, Rick Bowness, I think it was last year, ripped his players apart on the bench. Just ripped him. I remember it was a viral clip, and I'm looking at him like, this is great to see. I think some of our veteran players need to be held accountable. I think I'm a huge Jets fan. I love the team. I think Mark Scheifele is an incredible player, but I think Mark Scheifele needs to polish some things up about his game defensively. I think that's kind of just a thing that any hockey fan could tell you.
Yeah.
And I think Bowness is going to be a good guy for a guy like Mark Scheifele. He's gonna get him playing more responsibly on the defensive side of the puck. And I think Scheifele is going to really polish his game a little this year. Maybe he doesn't score as many points as he's used to. I don't know, but I'm feeling better things to come for him. And I think the Jets defense is a little shaky, but there are some young players who are itching to get in the lineup. What's going to happen with Sandberg? What's going to happen with Heinola? Just a lot of question marks with the team this year, but definitely a lot of excitement. And I think we're going to bounce back. But as we're about to talk about, the Central Division is a tough division. It got better in the offseason in some ways.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what I also want to throw at you just quickly, and then we can jump into maybe some standings talk because we had a little bit of a conversation with Luca on it as well in an overall sense. Was it a little bit, just as a fan and you interacting with our Jets fans, was that a little bit disappointing or underwhelming seeing like not even just the Central Division, but seeing like all across the league, like so much business being done, like so much like transactions, so many moves, and just kind of the Jets were Shovel Dayoff was, I guess, just patient. He wasn't really giving in to too much.
Like, I don't know how patient Chevy necessarily was. I think what people don't realize as much, or they can forget, is that Winnipeg is probably the single hardest city to get players to play in, like free agents. Like, do players want to come to Winnipeg? Not really. I think players who get drafted by Winnipeg end up really liking it. That's why we're able to re-sign a lot of our players, because once you get there and you live there, you're like, wow, this is a really special place. There's a great sense of community. Sure, it's cold, but like it's a small city. The team loves the Jets. Like, you really get a feeling like you're a hero as a player. It's just my guess. What free agent wants to come to Winnipeg? Like, you know, like, okay, we get Sam Gagner. I actually like him as an addition to our bottom six, but is that guy going to like alter our franchise? Are we going to get like a number one defenseman who's willing to be like, oh yeah, I'm coming to the Jets? It was very, very encouraging seeing Johnny Gaudreau go to Columbus. And I'm not to compare Columbus and Winnipeg too much. I know they offer a lot of different things, but it's nice. It was nice to see a big superstar player choose a smaller market and just say like, whatever, I'm just going to go to a smaller market. Why not? You know, I just can't wait to see Austin Matthews wearing a Winnipeg Jets uniform in 2024.
I love it, man. Wouldn't that be unreal for you being in Toronto and seeing something like that? I think you'd have quite the, I would say, bragging rights over Corwin, a bunch of these guys.
I think I would literally crap my pants if that happened. Yeah, I don't know what I would do. I think I would just like lose control of my whole body. Like, it would be amazing.
Or you could bring over your lookalike in Marner and just have him on the team.
That'd be nice. I'll tell you right now, he'll be appreciated there a lot more than he is here.
We can go back to the Central talk, but you talked about the Letty offline here. Are you missing the Mully, or what's next for Jesse's lettuce?
Dude, honestly, that's such a good question. I feel like I should do something nuts. Like, I was kind of thinking about it, like, do I like bleach it blue, or do I like give myself like a double mohawk, like, and look like a ram? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. That's a good question though. Something I got to think about for sure.
Yeah. Back to what I liked what you said, because I think that goes for a lot of markets, is like, whether it's not even necessarily like drafting guys from Winnipeg or drafting guys from the city, but like drafting them, getting them in the system, working them through for a few years. But Cole Perfetti, I think a lot of Jets fans are really excited about Perfetti. I think I saw you skating with Seth Jarvis, and he's a Winnipeg guy. And I mean, I'm not going to make you answer this or anything, but is that a situation where maybe in the future you'd like if a Seth Jarvis is like available for Winnipeg, like, is that something you'd like to see from the Jets organization? Like, if there's a top end player from Winnipeg, from Manitoba, is that kind of a direction you'd like to see?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like the one thing that's going to lure these really good players to come to Winnipeg. I know that when Mark Stone was available, there was chatter that the Jets were potentially going to get Mark Stone. How amazing would that have been to have a guy like Mark Stone as a first line player? Or, you know, Jonathan Toews is going to be a free agent after next year. A lot of people are writing him off. What's Toews? Like, what is he, 33, 34? Like right around there?
Yep.
I think Toews has got some good hockey left in him. I would gladly take him as a third line center for the Jets. I don't know what we would do with Lowry, whether we move to the wing but yeah, like, you're telling me that Jonathan Toews is just like done like that? No way. Like, Chicago sucks right now. He's in a weird position. I think if he came home, Jonathan Toews could be a good player for the Jets. We'll see.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was thinking. I think, obviously it doesn't always work that way. And I honestly, for guys like you said, Hanola, Sandberg, and Perfetti, I do hope they get their fair shot at a roster spot in like opening night. But I mean, the defense is maybe shaky, but definitely crowded. I would look at like 8 or 9 guys battling for roster spots there. So definitely crowded. I think Perfetti's definitely got more of that opportunity there.
Oh,
So just
Perfetti is here to stay. Like I think,
Yeah.
I think like Perfetti is going to be a guy who's expected to put up like probably at least 50 points. You would hope.
Yeah, I think so. I think seeing not comparing them as players, but it's kind of funny. We were just talking about Newhook with Luca, and I feel like Newhook is kind of like what you're expecting from Perfetti. I think Newhook put up like 40 points, so at least that
Yeah.
for Perfetti, potentially in the top 6, top 9.
I think Perfetti should be a top 6 player this year. I'd actually expect him to score more than 40 points this season.
Well, yeah, how it lines up: Connor, Scheifele, Ehlers, Wheeler, Dubois, Perfetti. If that's your top 6, that's a pretty good top 6 in the Central.
It's pretty nice.
Overall Central chat, Jesse. You don't necessarily have to have like hard spots here for each team, but how do you see it playing out with Luca? We were kind of chatting about maybe like different tiers and how it was playing out, but so for yourself, how do you see it going down?
Yeah, must be nice, Luca. Must be nice. Well, I see Colorado finishing atop of the division for sure.
Yeah.
Although there are some questions. Goaltending is going to be different for them this year, and losing Kadri is pretty big. Although I did like that Rodriguez signing, pretty reasonable, 1 year, $2 million. I think that's a nice contract. I think that's a nice contract for the Avalanche. So I like Colorado. Like I think you got to think Minnesota is still a good team. Their younger guys are only getting better.
For sure.
Boldy's a really good player, and Kaprizov's obviously a stud. I think they probably snag one of the spots. And then look, I look at St. Louis. I think they did a good job locking up these young guys who they clearly see as the future of their team. And Kyrou and Thomas. I mean, that Thomas contract was pretty interesting because he had one really good year and then bang. I guess Kyrou a little too, but look, they're putting their eggs in the basket, and I respect it because they're both really good players.
Yeah.
But I think losing David Perron is huge. Like that guy is like an engine for that team. He is so deadly in the playoffs. I watched David Perron just dominate the Jets in 2019. He was a point per game player last year, I'm pretty sure. Past couple of seasons, I think he's been. He's only gone better with age, and I think Detroit did a really good job. I can't believe the contract that he only got $9 million over 2 years.
Nuts.
Like, how is Ilya Mikheyev getting paid the same amount per year as David Perron? Makes no sense to me.
No.
And that makes me think. Like he went to the Red Wings. Like, if the Jets threw Perron like a 2-year, $12 million deal, I would have been thrilled with that. Like getting a guy like Perron, I'm like, okay, we're ready for the playoffs with a guy like Perron, but. So, I look at St. Louis as a team that like should probably snag the 3rd spot, but another team that maybe deserves a little more recognition is Nashville. Like I feel like Nashville's had a pretty good offseason. They were able to sign Forsberg. They signed Niederreiter, correct?
Yep. Yeah, they brought a Niederreiter.
And they got McDonough.
Yep.
And you hope that like Eli Tolvanen is gonna
Tomasino. Yeah. There's a few guys in that even like middle 6. Like, man, you're right. I feel like I'm seeing people default Nashville back to that 6th spot a lot, and like we're forgetting last year everyone was saying the exact same thing. And then you have Saros there. You have obviously that defense now. Top 4 is probably one of the best in the West. I do like, as you're kind of going through, I do want to kind of touch on like the fact that the Central goaltending is so stacked. Like outside of the question mark in the Avalanche tandem and like the bottom 2 teams, the rest of the teams have a stud in that. Like it's crazy.
I mean, you don't really know what you're getting in Binnington during the season, at least.
Yeah.
He was amazing in the playoffs last year. I guess Minnesota has
it depends what version of Fleury you're getting. Yeah, I guess. But between Ottinger, Hellebuck, Saros,
that was a good contract. The Ottinger contract for Dallas.
Yeah,
that was really good. So yeah, I mean, Dallas is another interesting team. They're a team that can for sure snag a playoff spot. I think like the Jets and the Stars and maybe Nashville and St. Louis are kind of like hovering around each other in terms of competing for those last 2. I think Minnesota and Colorado should both snag spots, but
yeah,
we'll see. The Central is going to be really competitive this year.
So if you think like just how you see it, I guess right now, Winnipeg, if they're making it, they're probably snagging one of those wild card spots, I guess, just in terms of the competition.
Yeah, if I had to guess, they'd be snagging a wild card spot. But hey, we're gonna make a wild card spot, and then we're gonna shock the world.
There you go. Love it. Just
Wait,
overall.
you think I'm joking?
No, I don't think you're joking.
Wipe that smile off your face, buddy.
Man, hey,
I'm joking.
No, I know. We've seen some crazy stuff. We've seen the Dallas Stars squeeze into the playoffs and then go to the Cup final. Bro, I'm not getting on you because here's what I'll say. After watching, even though I said I was the only reasonable Leaf fan saying that Montreal was going to take the Leafs to 7. Even though I thought Montreal had a chance in that series, did I ever think they were going to go? Like, we saw Montreal and Dallas do it. So don't worry, man. I'm the last one to count out, especially the Jets. Well, I mean, we'll see.
I'm just kidding. We need Buffalo back. Come back, Buffalo back, please.
But, man, I'm excited because I know the last couple times I've had you on, you always joke about the 10-year-olds getting on you on Instagram and TikTok and all this stuff. And one thing I definitely respect, like, from you, and I think for myself or anyone else that has like a personality or does stuff online, we got to take a page out of your book because you give no shits. You make your takes, you make your crazy reactions, and you just go with the flow. I'm sure maybe sometimes there's people out there that irritate you, but I definitely got to give respect on you because you have your personality and you run with it. So
thanks, man. Yeah, honestly, like I got a lot of people who chirp me for what I do, like people making fun of me on Instagram all the time. Oh, this guy's so annoying. How do I watch BARDOWN without this guy? Screw you. Screw all of you.
Man, think about the percentages. There's so many people that love you. There's always going to be the people that hate. I know you hear that all the time, but
yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate that.
And just overall, I gotta say it's enjoyable to see like all the stuff you're doing with interacting with the Chel guys, like the Molly, skating with some of the guys. I know you've the golfing, all that stuff. So keep it up. Do you have? I know you want to kind of keep some of it surprise, but do you have some stuff kind of coming up, even if it's just personally, like content wise? And give yourself a little bit of a shout for. I know, hey, if you're not following Jesse, I don't know what you're saying, but Jesse, give yourself a little bit of a shout here at least.
Wow, thanks, man. Yeah, I got some cool stuff coming up. I mean, the video of the mullet, there's going to be a long form version of it coming out, I believe, tomorrow. And then going to Winnipeg to do some media day stuff with the Jets. So that'll be fun.
Real?
And I'm trying to think what else. I mean, the season's coming up pretty soon. I have my own video actually that I'm doing with a company. I can't really release too much information about it, but look out for my Instagram. It has to do with people taping their sticks, so keep an eye out for that. And yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff. The NFL is back too. I love the NFL. People who I really love the NFL. So yeah, it's a lot of fun stuff coming up, man.
And what are you most active these days? You're still pretty active, I'd say, like Instagram, TikTok. I'm following you there, so I know you post a decent amount.
Yeah, Instagram and TikTok, I would say, are probably the two that I'm most active on. Although Twitter I try to keep up with as well. Not as much in the summer, but during the season for sure.
All right, man. Well, honestly, you are an absolute legend. I'm respecting your time here because, guys, for everyone watching, Jesse's going to go play some pucks. So the fact that he squeezed in some hockey talk here on the pod, I really do appreciate it, man. Anything else you want to? I mean, it is the Hot Take Hockey podcast. On your way out here, do you have a little bit of a hot take or some crazy take or something you liked this offseason, or just something absolutely crazy, some hot take? Anything, man. It could be Jets related too. I mean, you could get some Habs fans pissed off. I wouldn't mind that.
Hot take. Hey, Austin Matthews is going to score 70 goals this year. Okay. And here's a hot take. Patrick Laine scores 50.
There you go, man. I've been waiting for Laine to drop it, and like now with Johnny next to him and whoever else he's playing with, like I could see Patty. I'm not just saying that because last year, or actually it was 2 years ago, I said the guy would get 50. So I'm hoping he does it this year. But Jesse, man, thank you so much for coming on. I really do appreciate it. You're an absolute legend. I'll always say that. You've come on 3 times now. So hopefully next year we'll keep it going, keep the trend next off season. And man, thank you so much for the time.
Of course, bro. Anytime. All the best. Keep up the good stuff and go Jets, baby.
There you go. Can we get a let's go on the way out?
Of course. Let's go!
Love
Right
it.
here, she's like, "What's going on? What's